Happy Saturday, YouTubers. It's a pretty daggone cold day here in Northeast Ohio. It's been some hail, some sleet, some snow. Um, and honestly, I couldn't be happier because I'm feeling hibernation lazy today. And Will's with his dad, and that's a good thing because Will doesn't do hibernation lazy. So I've been catching up on Days of Our Lives and just totally melting into the couch. I woke up this morning and realized that today is October 17th, and it is officially 4 years, almost probably to the minute, that I got the diagnosis of Will's Angelman Syndrome. And I had said I would talk more about that when the diagnosis anniversary hit. So, the road to Will's diagnosis was very long. 2 years of me, actually, I guess I should back up. At 11 weeks old, I had said he had his first inpatient visit to the hospital with bronchiolitis, got RSV. We spent probably every month a couple days in the hospital with breathing issues, yet they couldn't quite pinpoint what it was. At around 10 months old, we were inpatient yet again, and I had a pulmonologist come in the room who was a gem of a doctor. He wouldn't speak to me. He spoke to the resident about me in the third person as though my son and I weren't there. I banned him from Will's room ever again. He was a great, I can't remember his name, Craven maybe, I don't know. But he had mentioned to the resident that Will was really delayed for his age in doing things. And had mom noticed that? And honestly, I hadn't, because up until that point, it was 10 months of checking his breathing and his oxygen sats, and is he cyanotic, is he turning blue, and is he retracting? And so no, I wasn't really paying attention, and his fine motor skills were great. But looking back on it now, when you live your life in a hospital bed hooked up to oxygen and IVs, all you really have are your fine motor skills. So that started me down a path of what could this be? And we got Help Me Grow involved, and again, we just kept getting this blanket diagnosis of globally developmentally delayed GDD. So next hospital visit, we had a different floor attending, and her and Will developed a crush instantly. And for the first time on this journey, I had a doctor listen to me. Her name is Dr. Laura Milgram, and to this day, she's our lifesaver. She's an amazing person and an even more amazing pediatric pulmonologist. So she said to her rounding group of residents, either this kid has the worst luck in the world, or mom's right and we're missing something. So we ran a battery of tests, including cystic fibrosis. They took him down to do a barium swallow study, where he had to eat and drink different consistencies with barium on it, in front of like a live x-ray machine. And it was at that moment that we learned that he was actually aspirating. So everything that he would swallow, a portion of it would go into his lungs, thus causing all the pneumonias that nobody could hear, but we could always see on film. I literally hugged all the x-ray techs and the radiologist. They said they'd never had a parent hug them for a diagnosis like that, but we finally were on our way somewhere. So we spent the next 13 months jumping to various specialists. A Google search got my hands on the Cleveland Clinic entire employee directory. It's out there. And I started randomly emailing doctors based on their focus and their specialties. And through this time, we got a diagnosis of strabismus, which means his one eye floats. He had glasses. He was hypotonic, low muscle tone. He had laryngomalacia, lazy larynx, which meant he aspirated. And we just kept getting all of these random, it seemed, diagnoses. And for me, it wasn't enough to just have no answer. There had to be an answer, or, there's something overarching and tying all these symptoms together. So as time went on and I went through doctors like unbelievably, I finally one day did what everybody told me not to do, and that was put all of his diagnoses into Google to see what might happen. And the very first hit that came up on that search was a paper written out of a medical school in California. I still can't remember which one. The neurology department. It was a Word document, and what was actually highlighted was Angelman syndrome. So I started to research that. And he wasn't like a perfect clinical diagnosis of Angelman syndrome presentation, but he hit quite a few marks, including his appearance. So I went to our then probably fourth or fifth neurologist, and I said, "Hey, doc, I really think he has Angelman syndrome. And can we run the tests?" And he said, "Well, we need a geneticist," and I couldn't get into a geneticist. And he picked up these, I don't know what it was. It looked like some archaic medieval medical device. It was metal. And he said every Angelman patient he ever had cracked up laughing when he would rub these things together because it made like a music sound. So if Will didn't laugh, it meant he didn't have Angelman syndrome. And I can't make this shit up, folks. So he did it, and sure enough, Will looked at him like, "What are you doing?" He did it behind his back. And he's like, see, Melissa, he doesn't have Angelman syndrome. So then up came a whole bunch of exploratory tests where we checked his anatomy to see if anything was wrong that caused the laryngomalacia. There wasn't. They did a bronchoscopy, did a couple biopsies of his gut and his intestine, not his intestines, his esophagus. They were looking for eosinophilic esophagitis. And then they went in and they did what's called a bronchial lavage. They wanted to see the cells in the very lower lobes of the lungs to see if we could understand more about his aspiration/breathing issues. Now, if you're not familiar with this, and I was not up until this point, a bronchial lavage means they basically drowned my son. So when I handed him over, and I am the mother who walks him back to the table and talks to him and rubs his head until the gas kicks in, and I'm the first one in post-op before he wakes up. And they drowned him. So they filled the lungs with water, and then they suck it all back out. And in doing that, they can access the lungs in the lower lobe, the cells in the lower lobes of the lungs to see if they were abnormal. Everything came back normal in those tests except for some pretty bad undiagnosed reflux. So we were batting 0 there. So on follow-up from that procedure, the second savior in this journey for me, Dr. Lori Mahajan, Director of Fellows for Pediatric Gastroenterology at the clinic. Amazing woman. Finally, I was at a breaking point where I couldn't take it anymore. His dad thought I was crazy. Everybody thought I was losing my marbles. I wasn't stopping. I couldn't stop. And I sat and cried for 2 hours. And she finally turned the screen to me on her computer and said, "What tests do you want ordered?" Because I had 5 months to wait for the geneticist, and we couldn't wait 5 more months. So we ordered a complete chromosomal array. We ordered some thyroid tests. We ordered Fragile X and Angelman syndrome. So I took him down and pinned him down for, I don't know how many times it took to get blood. And every time it seemed like we had done enough visits, his sitter at the time, Jen, was my savior and was with me through all of this because him giving blood is awful. He has deep rolling veins, and most mind blanking today. Most people who draw blood phlebotomists can't actually hit his veins. So anyway, got another call. We need one more vial. I was like, Jesus Christ. Then came the calls. His thyroid was normal. His chromosomal array seemed normal. Fragile X was negative, and ironically, so was Angelman syndrome. Okay, I'll eat crow. And that's what I had said all along. If I was wrong, I was wrong, but we had to run the test. So I'm like, okay, we're back at square one. I'm now looking at a syndrome without a name, SWAN, and that's not good enough for me, and I'm not going to stop. Kept the appointment with a geneticist and kept researching. It was a Friday night. I was driving home from work, and my phone rang, and I recognized the number as a Cleveland Clinic number. It wasn't one I had in my phone book, so I answered it. And as I'm driving, it was his neurologist saying, "Melissa?" Yes. He said, "You know the Angelman syndrome tests?" And I'm like, "Yes, I know. They were negative. I know." He said, "Well, that last vial of blood was because we didn't run every Angelman test that you could, and you were right. Will has Angelman syndrome." So I almost drove off the road. I was relieved, kind of in shock and numb to finally have an answer. And my family and friends, I don't think quite understood why I was happy. Because, I was at a majority of the doctor's appointments alone, and what we were looking at next was the mitochondrial diseases, and that was not a path I wanted to take my son down. So Angelman Syndrome wasn't going to kill him. It was going to change how we lived our life, but it wasn't going to kill him. So all of his doctors started calling me, and all of a sudden the geneticist could see us the next day at 10 a.m. Funny how that happens. And that's where I learned Will has the rarest form of Angelman, known as uniparental disomy, Angelman syndrome. Long story short, I am no geneticist, so this is the 30,000-foot plain human hair sticking out. Where's that hair? View. So we each have 2 sets of chromosomes, one from mom, one from dad. Angelman syndrome lies on chromosome number 15. And in Will's situation, when he was conceived, Dad threw 2 number 15s and I threw 1. And his 2 out trumped mine. So Will has 2 paternal number 15s. And the maternal 15 is the one that talks. So the prognosis we received that next day was fairly grim. I spent that night sobbing and holding my baby. He wouldn't walk until he was at least 7 or 8. He would never talk. Forget school, you know what I mean? It was just this grim prognosis, seizures, and it was really deflating. So fast forward now, 4 years later, he is in kindergarten, doing really well at the correct chronological age. He's growing and excelling and learning how to communicate with us. He's nonverbal still. He's amazing. He is a case at the medical schools here because the doctors say that no mother should ever have to diagnose their child. And so Will is a case. And as things, progress and change, we update the doctors and they use it to talk about kids with Angelman and his progress and things that can be done. And I couldn't be more proud to be his mom. I couldn't be more proud of the battles that he wages so bravely, so much braver than any grown adult I've ever known. And ironically, tomorrow is 9 months that he is seizure free. So it's a pretty big weekend. And I miss him, but it's kind of nice to kind of get a break. Even though I'm on sabbatical, I'm still getting up at 5:30 every day to get the kids running. So it's our diagnosis anniversary. And to everybody who said, A, nothing was wrong with him, that I was crazy, and yes, I pulled the doctor reports. I know who you are. To everyone who said he would not be where he is now. To everyone who's receiving diagnoses today, be it you, be it your children, where the prognosis is grim and there seems to be not much hope, I say, F that. And you push and you fight and you find strength where you never knew you had it. And you find resources where you didn't know they existed. And you show the medical world what is going to be. Because had I taken that prognosis and just sat with it, Will would not be where he is today. He eats with silverware. That wasn't supposed to happen. He claps his hands. Wasn't supposed to happen. He's trying to talk. Maybe he'll be the unicorn and he'll have some words. I don't know. But what I do know is I'm never going to take this is as good as it gets as an answer. So I love you, my son. You are the light of my life and the missing piece of our puzzle. And I'm so proud you picked me and happy that you picked me to be your mama. Your sister and I don't know what we would do without you, even when you're driving us absolutely batty crazy. So that's all I have today. I'm going to go enjoy more wasted brain hours on Days of Our Lives. I have 35 episodes to catch up on. And I hope everybody's doing really well. And I'm sure we will talk soon.